My name is John Sestan. I'm the Vice President, Project Development at Cabral Gold. We have an advanced gold project in northern Brazil called Cuiú Cuiú, which is adjacent to the G Mining's recently commissioned TZ gold mine. We're planning a two-stage strategy to develop Cuiú Cuiú. The first stage is a starter project which aims to mine and process the surface oxide material that occurs above the deeper primary ores. Based on the results of the recently released updated PFS for stage one, the starter project has a very strong IRR of 77%, a 10-month payback, and is expected to generate after-tax cash flows averaging over $20 million annually during its initial 6-year mine life. All this at $2,500 an ounce. The free cash flow generated by this oxide project will be directed into the funding of stage 2 development of Cuiú Cuiú, accelerating the exploration and evaluation program with focus on the primary resources of Cuiú Cuiú. I was very fortunate to work within some very high performance mining cultures during my early development years. 14 years with Rio Tinto, during which time I cut my teeth in the project development space in the early 1990s on the first non-recourse project financing that took place in Indonesia. Certainly a baptism by fire. In terms of understanding mine development strategies, risk management, and exposure to political risk and joint venture partner issues, it had the works. Later, I managed a wide range of feasibility studies, due diligence programs across Southeast Asia and India, and then moved to more in the M&A space, where I led multi-function teams to structure and negotiate transactions. Geographically, during this time, I was exposed across most continents and fortunately, I had experience in bulk commodities, industrial metals, and precious metals. After 14 years with Rio Tinto, I transitioned to a career in consultancy, where I was leading client teams across a complete spectrum, from the very largest companies to micro caps in the Australian market. Some of the key principles that I rely on in project development include, probably one of the more important ones is the need to have a balance between risk management, value creation. No point having an over-reliance on either. That's key. The next issue is the importance of analytics and attention to detail. This requires a fair bit of work, and many people, you'd be surprised, many people are not willing to do that work. So coming to the table armed with all the analytics and detail is very important in any process. Teamwork's also critical. As you get older, you come to understand what you don't know, and it just so happens that as you get older, you feel that you don't know. There's a lot more that you don't know, but it's important to understand the importance of relying on others to achieve a result. Finally, the key principle that really is at the core of what I do is making sure that we prioritize shareholder outcomes, and in that respect, shareholder returns. Ultimately, we work for shareholders. So it's critical we keep in mind how our solutions impact their per share metrics. One of the first things that attracted me to Cabral was the potential of the Cuiú Cuiú district. Like most mining projects, it's the resource that matters the most. And looking at the material that Alan Carter presented to me, it was a very compelling exploration story. I was also drawn to the opportunity by Alan's proven success in the region. He was familiar with the region. He'd been associated and made the TZ discovery, which was on the same strike, and was extremely passionate about Cuiú Cuiú project. And unlike CEOs of many other exploration development companies, he invested both his cash and his sweat into the venture, a real sign of commitment. The strategy at the time when I first began discussions with Cabral was on funding the vast exploration program through regular and very expensive capital raisings. But like many other exploration companies, the hope was that you'd quickly increase the value of the company through discoveries, and this increase in value would offset the ongoing dilution to shareholders. Very risky strategy. But the attraction of the opportunity for me was to help create an alternative to, as Alan calls it, the hamster wheel, and use the company's existing resource base to create a stream of cash flow that could fund the exploration, evaluation, development of the future mine at Cuiú Cuiú. 2 years later, I'm pleased that with the work we've done at Cabral, by the Cabral team, we're rapidly approaching a construction decision to build that stage 1 oxide project. My role is evolving. Over the past 2 years, the focus has been on completing the two PFSs, the original and the updated PFS, which we released on the 29th of July. We've had Ausenco helping us bringing engineering rigor and structure to our studies. As a counterbalance, we've established a startup-like and entrepreneurial culture within our team. Together, we're aiming for a solution that fits our needs while aligning the business case to our financial capacity and strategic goals for the project. My focus is now shifting to the construction phase so that we're ready to execute once we receive a positive construction decision. Priorities include financing discussions and negotiations, and always keeping close communications with the board to ensure that we're ready to have that construction conversation when the time's right. Moving forward, the focus will shift to setting the scope and commercial structure with our EPC and partner, and ensuring that we have the necessary boots on the ground and resources and technical advisory service to execute the project with our ambitious timeline. Firstly, I try and stay out of the way of the exploration team. There's enough of them, and they don't need another cook in the kitchen. Engineering consultants, Ausenco, are spread across the Americas. I'm based in the east coast of Australia and have got used to early morning calls and late night calls. I communicate daily with the construction manager and country manager in Brazil. They're both on the ground and both on site and are very busy preparing and supporting the infrastructure for the construction phase. Quite literally, these guys are the last people I speak to at night and the first in the morning. So it's not always convenient, but we make it work. There are two key risk factors that I'm most concerned with re the development plan. First of all, it's the performance of third-party suppliers and the logistics associated with delivering key process components to our site. The question is, will we receive these necessary equipment items in time for installation and commissioning in order to meet our tight timeline? We have three major components. The first one is the ADR, then the sizer and the agglomerator. These are the three major components we've identified that have long lead time requirements. We've already placed the order for the ADR system to an Australian company, Como Engineering, and it's under construction at their site in Perth. We've paid for a series of deposits to support that. We expect that to be shipped in the first quarter of next year, and if all goes well, to be on site comfortably in time for commissioning in the second quarter of next year. The sizer agglomerator, we've just finished the technical assessment of that, and those two components, and we're in conversations with the suppliers of those two pieces of equipment. Essentially, we need all three on site in Q2 next year, so allow us to do the commissioning late into Q2 and have enough time as contingency in order to ensure that we have production in some stage in Q3. The second major area of risk that we have is earthworks and interfacing with the weather. For the project to be on track, the earthworks and the civils for the process plateau, as we call it, that's the area where the process plant will be placed, needs to be completed before the onset of the wet season later on in the year. That will allow us to have an area that we can lay down equipment and install equipment and build the plant during the wet season. There's no point doing the earthworks and civil works during the wet season. That will just increase cost and elongate the whole development project. So from our point of view, it's critical that we start that earthworks as soon as we can in the fourth quarter of this year. We've completed the engineering, so we identified this risk early, so we've spent early works funding to complete the engineering to a detailed level, and that's now being circulated amongst potential contractors. And we expect to start that work immediately on a construction decision by the board. We expect this to be a 2-month, this earthworks and civils program to take about 2 months and to be completed comfortably before the wet season, onset of the wet season, so long as we begin at the start of the fourth quarter. Our team on the ground is led by Rory McKnight, and he's done an excellent job managing the process. As part of the process is quickly nearing completion, with community consultations being the final step, taking place in the coming days. After that, it is up to the regulators to provide the final project approvals, which will supersede the trial mining license currently in hand and currently These trial mining licenses provide us with the regulatory consent to proceed to construction. We're now well into the detailed engineering phase. We're focused on critical path items and long lead items, and the final design drawings for the site preparation and earthworks is complete, as I mentioned earlier, and the procurement processes for all long lead time items are close to the critical path are well advanced. So I'm very confident that we are well on track for that accelerated timeline. There are risks to any forecast, but we believe that we have a P50 construction and operational estimate. In other words, there's an equal chance of outperformance and underperformance. We have a detailed risk matrix, which includes 80 to 90 risks identified during a recent risk assessment workshop. Of these, we have 7 risks with potentially severe consequences, 2 that fall within the red zone when doing the risk assessment, defined as severe consequences and the highest probability, although not high. As a team, we are all aware of these and are making decisions on a daily basis to reduce either the severity or the probability of these negative outcomes. Importantly, though, as I mentioned earlier, there always needs to be a balance, and we also have several opportunities that we are actively managing, which we expect will improve the returns from the project. An example of that is we have room in the production plateau for a fifth heap leach pad. Introducing a 5th heap leach pad would add 25% to the production capacity of the plant, and we believe we'll have spare capacity in both the agglomerator and the sizer to process the additional material. So we'll be ready to pull the trigger at any point in order to increase the capacity of the project, and that will increase the returns to shareholders from the investment. The main benefit of the oxide resource essentially lies on the surface, reducing the waste stripping costs, especially in the early years. An example is during the payback period of 10 months, the first 10 months, we mine 800,000 tonnes of ore, but only 100,000 tonnes of waste. This is quite extraordinary for most mines, which are generally faced with a large pre-stripping investment before they actually start mining ore. That's the biggest benefit. The oxide ore is also free digging, which also avoids the cost of drill and blasting in the mining process. That's got an obvious cost advantage. And during processing, the softness of the material reduces the need for power-intensive crushing and grinding associated with non-oxidized material. This is particularly important to us because for the starter project, we'll be accessing local diesel generators in order to generate the power, and we won't have access to the grid power, so we'll be very sensitive to power costs. At all times, we must ensure the project design has an eye on its principal objective, which is to support a phase 2 development at Cuiú Cuiú. It's sometimes easy to fall into the trap of thinking that this is we have to focus entirely on phase 1, but it's not. It's actually, we've got to make sure that phase 1 supports phase 2 at all times. The starter project contributes to the second stage in a number of ways. First of all, it generates cash to accelerate the exploration development of the larger project while minimise shareholder dilution. A key metric here is to reduce the call on shareholder funding and dilution. In many areas, the mining of the oxide cap services the larger project by exposing the primary ore. So the oxide material generally is associated with high-grade primary ore, and as such, if we remove the oxide material, it exposes the primary ore. So there are some areas with 50 or 60 metres of that oxide material that would have had to have been pre-stripped in a high-grade type environment. What we're doing is removing that and exposing the primary ore. That's a dramatic change to the economics of the larger project. Also, the project provides an operating base and full permitting for the larger project. It provides us the flexibility that a major project expansion will be a brownfields expansion rather than a greenfields expansion. It means that we will be more likely to be able to execute a brownfields expansion rather than a greenfields expansion. It's critical that we are able to assemble a fit-for-purpose development team with real on-the-ground experience. Rory McKnight, a fellow Australian, has chosen to call northern Brazil his home for over 20 years, and he's played pivotal roles in the development of other similar mining projects. Rory takes care of all of our in-country matters, including permitting, community relations, and has recently added the responsibility of preparing the offsite infrastructure to support the influx of the construction team. Luis Solaro, a recent hire, is our construction manager and has got direct experience in building several mining projects in the region, including a number of comparable heap leach projects. Luis has demonstrated a keen eye to identify issues that may impact our plans, but also has found many opportunities to get a better outcome, a real entrepreneurial spirit. Brian Arkle, he's our VP Exploration. He's the one who generates the resource estimates and mine plans and manages all our test work so that we have the very best test results in order to feed into Ausenco's design calculations. It's an exceptional core team, which is further complemented by access to a handful of higher level processing experts. We're not a large company. We can't afford to have these people on staff, but we're very lucky to have access to some very high-level resources, external resources that we draw on when we require them. These experts challenge us at every step, and they keep forcing it or keep asking us to reduce risk, but also a lot of what-if questions, which we're really appreciative of, and makes the project a lot stronger. As someone that is new to the Cuiú Cuiú district, my first impressions were that the area was remote and isolated. That's not the case. Both Rory and Louise have developed other projects locally in the region and have the network and local expertise to assist in our project execution. Also important to note that neighbouring TZ mine is developed and commissioned, the mine is commissioned on time, demonstrating that the region does have the capacity to support the development of a mine much larger than the Cuiú Cuiú starter project. The rainfall, especially in the wet season, will impact activities, and planning needs to accommodate the potential disruption to supply chains and access to the construction site. But we've learned that the rain is not, it doesn't occur every day. It usually occurs in periods of several days at a time, but there are dry periods within the wet season. So there's opportunities there to, if we are flexible, to actually take advantage of some reasonable weather, even during the wet season. We've got quite a few short-term milestones for investors to watch out for. We're well into the process of financing the project. We've got a number of interested parties that we're in detailed discussions with. That will take its own time, but we expect that milestone to be completed in the coming months. And concurrent with that will be a board review of the project and a financial investment decision, which will provide the full green flag for the construction. And of course, we have an extensive drilling campaign underway, which are expected to generate. It is expected to generate regular updates around some of the exciting targets at Mishishi and also PDM. I'm most excited about the resource that we have and the ground we have. Great location, really good start, and we have an exciting exploration project, and now we're likely to be fully funded to really accelerate that exploration program. We have a strategy that makes sense given the current state of the capital markets and our existing financial resources. So it's a low risk, short-term way of bringing cash flow into the company, and us and Cabral being independent of the vagaries of the capital markets. We have a great team, management community, and a community of experts, an extremely supportive board. Fortunately, we've got a very supportive gold market as well, which is always helpful. Nice to have a bit of a tailwind. And finally, I'm excited because the role that I've been asked to play on this journey, and hopefully making a real difference to all of our stakeholders.